I have a great deal of respect for the sponsor of the bill. He and I worked together on other issues, and I'm candidly a little disappointed with that response because if one were going to sponsor something like this that makes such a dramatic change in public policy in the state, we ought to think through whether taxpayer dollars are going to be used to fund this initiative. So I'd urge all of my colleagues to think hard about that as we go forward today. But what I really wanted to address, Mr. Speaker, today about this bill is really the twin values that the proponents of the bill seem to be touting as its main strengths. That is, it would make us a more compassionate state and make us a freer state if only we were to pass this bill today. And I would submit, Mr. Speaker, that it makes us neither more compassionate nor more free. I want to talk about that a little bit today. Everyone, I think, in this chamber has gone through a life experience watching loved ones go through the end of their lives, having to make difficult decisions with them, with our parents, with our grandparents. I know the sponsor of the bill has had a very personal experience that's helped shape his legislation and his efforts here. I have a great deal of sympathy for that experience. I had myself, my grandmother passed about 3 years ago. I held her hand as she passed away in St. Joseph's Hospital in Patterson, and the decisions that my parents had to struggle with, and then we struggled with my grandmother together. My father-in-law himself is dealing with these issues now. He suffered a significant stroke and has been holding on for a couple of years. And this is obviously an area of the law that calls on us to use our hearts as much as our heads when we're making decisions. But if we want to become a more compassionate state, I would suggest we don't pass this bill. There are other and better ways to be more compassionate. Ask yourself the question, what do we owe our fellow men and women who are going through these terrible decisions about what to do if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness? Well, if the pain becomes unbearable, there are ways to help patients manage pain. Palliative care has advanced so much, and there are more we can do, or there should be more we can do to make people more comfortable at the end stages of life. And I don't think anybody who opposes this bill would suggest that the law should say that patients who are at the end of their lives are obligated to extend their lives any more than nature would extend it. No one would suggest that the medical care should be forced on anyone. An individual has the right to deny life-extending care. That's not what I would consider compassion. We wouldn't be compassionate if we forced people to extend their lives unnaturally. So we should allow people who know that the end is near to embrace that or accept that and accept and embrace a natural death. But we should do that, and when we allow them to do that, surround them with love and with hope, and hope for what they leave behind and what they're facing next, and not open the door to death and hasten their deaths. I suggest that when you open the door to intentionally ending one's life, the right to die or the opportunity to die can become the obligation to die. That people at the end of their lives might feel like they're a burden to others, a burden to their family members, a burden to taxpayers, and decide that maybe they ought to think about prematurely ending their lives. That I don't see as becoming a more compassionate state. I think we'd become a much colder state if we were to open that door to our brothers and sisters who are facing these terrible decisions. And, Mr. Speaker, providing this choice to individuals doesn't make us a freer state. Because this bill isn't about what the terminally ill think about the value of their lives. This bill is about what we as a society say is the value of another individual's life. It's about what we say through the law and how we value individuals' lives. I keep going back to the very basis of our freedom, Mr. Speaker, and the document that helped found our country, the Declaration of Independence. When we said, hey, there are certain self-evident truths. And among those truths, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and the first right is the right to life. We're also all created equal. And those principles, that fundamental commitment to equality, is the foundation of all of our freedoms. That sets us apart in America. There are other countries who have tried to be free, tried to emulate our form of government, but there's no country that quite has it in its DNA like America, that there's a fundamental human equality and a fundamental dignity to every human life that serves as the foundation of our human freedom and all of our civil rights. And it's that inherent dignity and that inherent value that forms the foundation for our civil rights laws, or the notion that we're all entitled to due process. Our very equality under the law is based on our fundamental human equality. And so that's why in America it doesn't matter if you're black or white or green or red, whatever your skin color is, you're treated equally under the law. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you're treated equally under the law. And it doesn't matter if you're tall or short or fast or slow, you're treated equally under the law. And until today, it hasn't mattered whether you were healthy or sick, whether you were treated equally under the law. This bill would change that. And it would make, obviously, those who are terminally ill just a little less equal and demean their inherent human dignity by saying it's okay for another in our society to take your life or help you take your own life. Other countries who don't share our fundamental commitment to human equality have had assisted suicide and euthanasia laws for some time now. I think of the Netherlands, which it's been decriminalized for over 40 years and actually legalized for a decade. And in the Netherlands and other countries like Belgium or Switzerland, we've seen that where these laws begin by allowing those who are terminally ill to end their lives, they quickly morph into bills that actually encourage euthanasia of those who the law deems not quite as equal as others. So we've seen in the Netherlands, for example, that the law has switched from just being terminally ill. Now if you're chronically ill and want to end your life, euthanasia is open to you. People with serious disabilities, even those who experience...
Assemblyman,
yes.
Can we, on the bill, please?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm illustrating the problem and the fundamental problem with this bill and the experiences that we've seen in other states and other nations
but
who have implemented these kinds of
I
laws.
appreciate the assumptions, but just if you can stick to the bill. And I
I'll
give
do
you a little bit of latitude.
Mr. Speaker, I don't see how he's off the bill at all, talking about countries around the world that have similar bills or bills. I mean...
Assemblyman, Minority Leader, with all due respect, it's speculating on potentially what can come, but this is on the substance of the bill.
In all due respect, Mr. Speaker, I think we'd be well served to learn lessons from countries who have tried just this sort of thing, and why we should be hesitant here in New Jersey to implement the same policy. And it's not because we're concerned about the Dutch or the Belgians, although we should be, but it's because we're concerned about New Jerseyans. And we don't want to follow the path of the Dutch or the Belgians, who have seen their law go from what would be is suggested here today to allowing, again, people with handicaps, people who are just mentally or emotionally disturbed. And in fact, in Belgium...
Again, Assemblyman, on the bill, please.
Mr. Speaker, again,
I've given you even more latitude. On the bill.
Mr. Speaker, again, we've had a very constructive and good relationship trying to move public policy. Sometimes we don't always move in the same direction, and I understand that. But I think a very respectful and healthy debate about this issue is merited. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, Mr. Speaker, but people and the members of the body and the people of the state of New Jersey should know that when you open the door to having the government pick who's worthy of life and who isn't, that it has dramatic consequences, not just for the people involved in those decisions immediately, but the people who are next on the list, who might fall into the category of not quite worthy or not quite as equal as others in society. And my point is that in America, we've always had a respect for the fundamental dignity of every human life. Not every nation has shared that, and other nations who have gone down this road are suffering from the consequences. The Dutch, the Belgians, the Swiss, for example. Here's the point, Mr. Speaker, and this is the point I was getting to. When one group of people in a society, the majority, make it the law of the land that some minority in the country have lives that are not worth living, that are not quite as equal as their own, then that is not the road to freedom, Mr. Speaker. That's the road to tyranny. And this is what this bill and bills like it put us on a path towards. And I would urge all of my colleagues to think very carefully about that concept, about what makes us different as Americans, about that fundamental equality and dignity of all human life, and I'd ask them to oppose the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman.